Welcome back. As we've said, the presidential transition is now underway, and there are both policy and personnel decisions being made right now by the president-elect's team that will set the tone for how he starts his second term in January. Joining me now for a look at what the second Trump administration could hold is one of the president-elect's closest allies on the Hill, Florida Congressman Michael Waltz. Thank you, Congressman, for being here. Congratulations on your reelection.
Yeah, thank you. And good to have a job for 2 more years. Always will take that endorsement from the people I represent. It's an honor.
Well, we appreciate your taking some time with us on what I know has been a very busy week. Look, we have heard your name floated as a potential pick for a cabinet position in the new Trump administration, perhaps at the Pentagon. Let me ask you, if President-elect Trump asks you to join his cabinet, would you say yes?
Well, look, I think any time the president of the United States calls you and asks you to serve, I'm a Green Beret that served for 27 years and now serving in Congress. You have to take that very seriously. But I can tell you, President Trump it is not hyperbole to say he is superstitious. He talked and has talked to me about nothing but 7 swing states and the next rally, and our narrative to stay on immigration, the economy, and how to restore peace around the world. And that has been it.
Have you had any conversations with him since his decisive victory this week, Congressman, about potentially serving?
Just a quick No, I haven't. Just a quick congratulations. And I can tell you, I am hearing from ambassadors, foreign ministers, everyday soldiers and buck sergeants that are just thrilled with his election, frankly surprised a bit with how overwhelming it was and how quick it was, and the mandate that he now has. And I think what we're calling a mandate for common sense, and let's restore it.
That's what he told me. I had the opportunity to talk to him yesterday on the phone. He does believe he has a mandate for, exactly as you say, to restore common sense to the country. Those were his words as well. Let me ask you, both of Donald Trump's 2 previous confirmed secretaries of defense, as you know, Congressman, have had some tough words for him after they left office. James Mattis, for example, said he lacked mature leadership. Mark Esper called him a threat to democracy. Would it give you pause to fill the role left by 2 men who had such harsh words?
Well, frankly, one was fired, and you rarely see kind words in the wake of that. And I'll tell you, I would never vote as a member of Congress for a general to oversee the generals. I think you need civilian oversight of the military. It brings a very different skill set. And as a fellow elected, I think you absolutely have to respect, even if you disagree with the president of the United States, he's the only one that the voters put in that position. And so, if you start getting into a position where you think you're smarter than him or your ideas are better than him, that's not the right place to be. Look, this just does not comport with the man that I've come to know, the man I saw spend hours with Gold Star families that will literally pull over an entire convoy to talk to a police officer, talk to a soldier, and thinks deeply about the soldiers right now that are engaged in conflicts all over the world that, frankly, are a result of bad policy, whether that should have been deterred, whether that was in the Afghanistan withdrawal or in the Middle East or over in Europe. So I would be, I think anybody that he calls should be proud to step up and serve.
All right. Well, let me ask you about some of what might actually happen in a second Trump administration this summer in Congress. You voted for an amendment to defund NATO. Do you want to actually see President-elect Trump take steps that would roll back the United States' participation in the alliance or even leave the alliance altogether?
No, what I want to see are portions of NATO truly step up and do their fair share of defense spending. I'm not talking about countries like Poland or the Baltics or the United Kingdom that have met their minimums and exceeded it that they committed to over a decade ago. I'm talking about the big economies, Germany, Italy, Spain, France. Look, with World War, the largest war since World War II, literally on their doorstep, if they're not going to step up now, then when will they, number one? And number two, we shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back when a few of them finally meet the minimum. We should be at 100% minimum and then celebrating those that are far exceeding that. And with the interest on our debt alone exceeding our entire defense budget, with the threats that we're facing, especially from the Chinese Communist Party, we have to take that very seriously. And we can be friends and allies and have tough conversations about very real burden sharing.
Congressman, just to be very clear, put a fine point on this. You believe the United States will stay in NATO if Trump is once Trump re-enters the White House. You don't think that's negotiable. You don't think NATO membership is negotiable.
Well, look, I think President Trump very much appreciates the role of NATO, how successful it was in the Cold War, but is very frustrated that with a war going on in their doorstep, there are still over half the countries that haven't met their minimum. And he's going to push them hard, as he should, to get to those minimums and then exceed and share this defense burden. And if you look at, for example, like Japan, Japan is doubling their defense budget, is taking very real steps to deal with the threat that the Chinese Communist Party faces, not only to the Pacific, but to the world. So those are steps that he has said he will take, and I think promises, made, promises kept.
Let me ask you about some potential personnel decisions. The president-elect apparently weighing some. Would you support Mr. Trump firing General C.Q. Brown as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as some have suggested he should?
Well, look, I'm not going to get ahead of the president. The president absolutely has the right and the authority to hire his team. But I will tell you, there has been just a real culture or lack of accountability in the Pentagon. When you have nearly half of our submarines can't get out of the repair yard, when you have the Marines that are going to go without an amphibious fleet, when you have a recruiting crisis, the likes of which we haven't seen since Vietnam, our most expensive platform ever, the Joint Strike Fighter, has woeful readiness rates. When you have soldiers that are literally, according to the General Accountability Office, living in barracks with feces and mold. We need to see some type of accountability, and I think that is, again, that kind of business mindset that he's going to bring.
So I understand you're not going to get ahead of what the president-elect's going to decide there, but do you have confidence in Brown, or do you lack confidence in him?
Look, that's up to the commander-in-chief. That's not for me to decide. I can only speak from my seat in Congress that I just got reelected to.
Well, the president is also apparently considering recalling General Milley to active duty and potentially bringing him up on charges. Is that something you would support?
I haven't heard any conversations in that regard. I think the president is very much looking at how do we rebuild our shipyards? How do we rebuild our Navy? The Chinese Navy is now larger than ours. Kristen, you'll remember just a few years ago when everyone was mocking and making fun of the Space Force. And I think we have seen now that you cannot be number one on Earth if you're number two in space. Our entire economy is dependent on those constellations. And the Chinese and Russians have developed capabilities to literally send not just our military, but our entire economic system into the dark ages. Those are the threats that we're focused on. And of course, we'll be focused on the border, which is wide open. When we just arrested 8 ISIS operatives in 3 different cities planning to attack us again, these are serious threats that we have to get our arms around very quickly.
You take me to my next point, the border. In my conversation with President-elect Trump, made it very clear that's his top priority. He said he has no choice but to start his mass deportation plan. I asked him how much he thought it would cost. He said there is no price tag, basically indicating that the price is secondary to carrying out this part of his agenda. But as you know, it's been estimated this could potentially cost billions of dollars. Has there been any discussion in Congress about approving that? Do you think that Congress needs to approve such a plan?
Well, I'll tell you what's costing us billions is the tax, is the weight of this illegal immigration surge on government services, on our schools, on our hospitals. I just talked to a homeless veteran who said how many hotels are full of illegal immigrants, and yet he's literally was a homeless veteran. So those folks have to be deported. I think you'll absolutely see those with criminal records to the tune of hundreds of thousands be at the top of the list. And I think it will be looking at the savings both to our prison system and to our social services, not the cost.
All right, Congressman Waltz, thank you very much for your time. If you have any personnel announcements, please come back and share them with us. We appreciate it. Coming up next,
we'll get the Commander-in-Chief. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.